Ever
Yeah.
since 1970 in the United States with Roe v. Wade, a part of life is also abortion. So
Whoa! Hold on!
I mean,
Hey, stop!
I mean
Come
that's a
on,
part.
bro.
Hello, hello.
Yo.
Hey, what's up? How you doing, buddy?
What up?
Do you want to introduce yourself? Everybody can hear you talk. We can jump right into our convo if you want.
All right, bet. My name is Bryson Gray. I'm the Trump guy. I wore the big MAGA hat, and now a lot of people know me for wearing the music, and I mean not wearing the music, doing the music and starting the MAGA challenge. That's pretty much it. Political commentator, music artist, just a regular guy, you know.
Okay, cool. I'm sorry, just because I get a lot of emails. The guy that set this up, were you one of like the first members of Turning Point USA, or what's like your involvement with them? I guess.
No, I am a Turning Point USA ambassador now, but I am not one of the first members. What's funny is the guy who set it up is a guy that's like, one of them, that one of them haters you have on your page that comment on every post, even though they claim to hate you, they comment on every post. And I'm assuming he was a fan of yours. And he said, "Oh well, I want to see you debate Destiny." Bloop 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 bloop, and now we're here.
All right, well, I guess. Do you have any? Oh fuck, that's really awkward. Usually, the way that these normally start is I usually have a disagreement with somebody over some particular point, and then we go back and forth, and then usually we end up talking it out in a voice format. But I guess if we're not starting with any major disagreements, I guess do you think there's like a major topic that you want to start off on, or we could talk about that?
I do have a few disagreements because we say we're going to talk about the coronavirus pandemic or whatnot, and the thing I noticed that you had a debate on your page already with somebody about the same topic. And I watched a little bit of it, not a lot, but from what I watched, you had a few inaccuracies in the things you were saying.
Yeah, what kind of inaccuracies?
One thing you said cops aren't going to stop and ask where you are going during a city lockdown. That's happened to a few people I know already because my county is locked down.
Wait, what? Are you able to say like what city or state?
Greensboro, North Carolina.
So like the police are making people go back home?
Well, if you get if you get called out, but for the most part, unless it's obvious, you can say like you're going to the grocery store. But if you're riding with like 3-4 people, that's when they really have an issue with it. So, and you do get a $250 fine. Oh, shout out to everybody in the D Live chat. Also, thank y'all for coming in here, and Twitch. But yeah. So that's just. I don't know how long ago that debate was. I think you posted it 2 days ago.
Yeah, it was a few days ago. I'm just trying to find news stories. I don't see anything about like North Carolina or any like city like announcing that they're like fining people for being outside.
Oh no! You definitely. They say you get fined $250 and a misdemeanor.
Huh.
Guilford County, North Carolina. You can definitely Google it.
Gotcha. Okay. Maybe. I'll look for it later. I'm not saying it now, but it's possible that they could be. My argument at the time was that I hadn't heard of any states currently doing it. When did they start doing it in North Carolina?
We went on lockdown at 5 p.m. Friday, so I don't know when.
Huh. Okay. Maybe this happened like right after my conversation with them. I know that point. I know that a couple people had talked about it. Like I think the California governor had talked about maybe using the police for it, but I wasn't aware that they were doing it yet. So maybe some places are starting to do it.
Well, I mean, people, don't get me wrong. It's not like if you out, period, you're gonna get just arrested off the rip. But if like one of my roommates, his job had to give him a whatever he called it, a piece of paper to show the police just in case he gets stopped, type thing, to let them know that they're an essential. If you're an essential working, he works at a bank, so That's one of the things that I know for a fact they're doing it here. So that's why I asked. Also, you said that Trump was constantly trying to cut the CDC budget, which the CDC themselves said no, that literally never happened. Actually, the budget increased since Trump has been in office. So that's just incorrect, honestly.
Here's the CDC budget request. I'm just scrolling down for 2018. You can see the CDC budget. You can see the 2019 CDC budget, and then you can see the 2020 president's budget request for the CDC. It looks like it's gone down over the past 2 or 3 years. Unless maybe I'm reading this wrong or you've seen something different.
Yes, I could email you the link also. It was actually one of these liberal fact check places that actually fact checked another liberal source. And actually CNN, a few places have had to retract that statement saying that it has decreased. It's actually increased under Trump, especially from 2016 to 2017. Yeah, it's on factcheck.org. It's on actually it's on everything.
Okay. I mean, I'd be interested to see it. My understanding is that Trump has tried to cut the CDC budget. That we've seen requests for.
There was a proposed cut, but not necessarily from Trump. It was from CDC saying they couldn't do something within a 44 different countries or something they was at.
The CDC requested to cut its own budget?
Not requested to cut its own budget. They just had the resources. They said they wanted to focus on what they could focus on with the resources they did have. But the budget did not get cut. Budget cuts were proposed, but it didn't get cut.
So the only thing that I've heard about this, and somebody threw me an article related to this, is that the CDC, there have been some specific parts of the CDC that have gotten an increase in their funding. So, for instance, there was a funding for like global health protection, the global public health protection. That funding was increased, but the overall funding of the CDC has been decreased by quite a bit.
If you go to factcheck.org, this was released March 12th, 2020.
Yep, I'm linking you that article. Yeah.
Yes, I'm reading it. I'm reading it currently. That's the first thing I looked at. Period, though. So if you go down in that article, it said CDC operation budget plans show that its funding for global public health protection, which includes global disease detection and emergency response and global public health capacity, increased from $58 million in fiscal year 2017 to around $108 million in fiscal years 2018 and 2019. And that does not include any remaining supplemental funds available for use. The increases included nearly $50 million more each year for CDC's global health security initiatives.
Yeah, but so the CDC budget is over $5 billion. This is just a small provision within the CDC. It doesn't speak to the overall CDC budget.
Well, the CDC operation budget is what it's talking about. And it's talking about which includes global disease detection and emergency response, global public health capacity.
Yeah, but it's kind of like
a specific thing.
Yeah, but it's like let's say somebody gets paid like $5,000 a month, and let's say they spend like $300 a month on food. Let's say that they now get paid $4,500 a month, but now they spend $500 a month on food. Like, you can increase the amount that they spend on food, but you're decreasing their overall income. The budget of the CDC on an overall level has been decreased, and has been continued to be decreased under Trump. They have increased the funding within the CDC for a specific department for global public health protection, but the overall funding of the CDC has been cut quite a bit.
But just to be clear, when people are speaking about decrease, and also, can you link me the article that you're speaking about? Is it in the same article that I'm reading?
So I'm just linking it. This is literally just from the CDC. You can scroll down to the budget. It's a CDC fact sheet about their budget request. Yeah.
Okay, because the CDC are the people that commented on this also. But the topic we're speaking about is a global pandemic, correct?
Well, partially, yeah. I mean, depending on...
That's the only reason people even bring it up if the CDC got cut or increased or anything. That's the only reason it's being brought up.
Sure, but the overall funding of the CDC could influence their ability to get more funds related to pandemic responses as well. Even if you're increasing inside of the CDC, a particular department, more overall funding to the CDC maybe would have meant that they would have gotten even more money for it.
So that's a theory, but just so we're clear, so just to see what we both agree on, it is a fact that the pandemic parts of the CDC had a $50 million increase, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So the thing that handles situations of the nature got an increase. Okay, I'm just making sure we're correct.
Well, the entirety of the CDC is probably involved in a lot of the responses to this, whether it's through manufacturing vaccines or whether it's for research and development or whether it's for coordinating with other state departments in terms of how to handle like all the different like things going on, whether it's quarantines, people staying home from school, moving around like PPEs and everything. Like just that one part of the CDC isn't probably the only part of the CDC that's involved in dealing with pandemic response, right? The entirety of the CDC is working with this right now. So a cut to the entirety of the CDC is probably going to hamper its abilities to deal with a widespread threat like this, even if that one particular office maybe got a slight boost in funding.
A slight boost? It's $50 million, a slight boost. Okay, cool.
Well, $50 million out of a budget of $5 billion. If I were to give you $50 out of my $5,000, you'd probably, and then I give you $70 instead, you'd be like, okay, you gave me a little boost, I guess. But $50, $70 when your budget is $5,000 or $6,000 doesn't seem like very much. $50 million is a big number, but not in a $6 billion budget, right?
Well, actually, let's put it in its true. Let's put it in its true. In its true context, right? So your team budget was $50 million overall. That was for your team, the pandemic team. Mm-hmm. And then he said, then somebody says, you know what? Bow. Slap another $50 million on top of that. Your literal budget doubled. So either way you put it, that's a huge increase. Like, that's a huge increase in any aspect. So
yeah, sure. Like as a percentage for that office or for that particular department, that budget increase was big percentage-wise. But it seems like the CDC as a whole doesn't really have the tools that it needs right now. I mean, like, this is kind of inarguable, right? Like we have a lot, like New York, for instance, is clamoring for more federal assistance on things like ventilators and personal protective equipment, and we seem to lack the ability to coordinate or respond to this in an effective manner. Like that just seems to be a fact. Fauci himself has expressed, kind of disappointment in terms of some of the decisions the president has made in regards to offices being cut that deal with pandemics. Like, I mean, we can point to like a small increase in the CDC relative to the whole budget in a particular department.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Okay. The reason I even brought it up is because it specifically said, CDC specifically even said that it was the pandemic team. Like this is the team that's set. This is the team I'm creating to deal with this specific thing. Mm-hmm. So and you keep saying a small increase in budget, but bro, that's like what percent increase is that? Another 50 million on top of what your budget already was, and your budget was already 50 million. So your budget doubled. In no fashion is that a small increase in budget.
Yeah, but I mean, it wasn't sufficient to deal with what we're dealing with now, not even close, right? Like, look how long it took us to roll out testing. Look at how long it's taken us to like get any of this stuff off the ground. Like the United States has been so late in getting to do this that we're just now finally starting to roll these tests out in certain areas, and we still have a shortage on it. Like,
well, we've been rolling tests out. You just don't think we're rolling them out fast enough. Am I correct?
Well, I mean, by definition, yeah, of course they are being rolled out, yeah.
Okay, yeah, and they've been rolled out for a minute. I'm just saying the specific team for that has had a major increase that's set for that. So for anybody to say you can't, there's no way you can convince me that I gave you more money, which makes you less equipped to handle a pandemic. That makes no sense mathematically.
Well, but that office isn't
your team specifically for a pandemic. I'm giving you 50 million on doubling your budget, and you tell me you're less equipped to handle a pandemic. No, sir.
The entirety of the CDC is involved with dealing with this, though. It's not just that office, right?
But that office is specifically set for a pandemic, correct?
Sure, for like research and stuff in like other countries and whatnot. But that office is not involved with like coordinating stuff in the United States and manufacturing like vaccines and tests, or in like coordinating with all the different state departments.
What a CDC. Yeah. I was about to say the CDC doesn't sell tests, so I mean obviously not, but their task, their complete task is to deal with situations like these. So what I'm saying is, I mean, anybody that has owned a company that had different teams, your team was set to handle a certain aspect of the job to make the job run smoother and better.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So we agree on that.
Yeah, we can both agree that the overall budget of the CDC was cut, but that funding to a particular department was increased related to.
Well, what I'm reading now, I just scrolled to the bottom, CDC government budget, and I'm in prevention funding history. I'm assuming this is the overall budget, and it does say it went from. Bryson must be reading this wrong because it says 801 to 805, and 19, and then 2020 it say it had a decrease to 423. I'm assuming that's millions. So it looks like from 2019 to 2020, it did have this decrease in budget for the overall CDC.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's simple. That's what I'm reading right now. I'm not going to deny something that's right in front of my face. But you also can't deny the pandemic. I don't want to sound like I'm beating the dead horse.
Well, I'm just saying, like, that's just one part of the CDC. So, like, for instance, I linked you a story right now. Like, Trump is proposing, like, for instance, like the current budget cuts related to the CDC, right? He wants to cut 15%, $1.2 billion out of it, a $35 million decrease to the Infectious Diseases Rapid Response Reserve Fund. Like, I mean, we're talking about, like, pretty widespread cuts to the CDC. We might have increased funding to one particular office, but there's lots of offices in the CDC that can use money that help us with this pandemic response as well.
But it's not just one office in the CDC. It's the part of the CDC, the office of the CDC specifically tasked with handling this problem. Their expertise is supposed to be handling situations like these, and their specific budget was doubled.
Sure, but that's for the global pandemic response team. That has nothing to do with the national coordination that we need the CDC to work for. That's all I'm pointing out. Like,
so now we're speaking on the coordination of it. I'm just speaking specifically on the pandemic response. The pandemic team for the CDC got a budget increase. So the overall CDC, you are correct. It seems like they got a decrease from 2019 to 2020 in the budget. I'm reading that now from the article, from what you sent me from the CDC website.
Mm-hmm.
But the CDC also said, if you read the factcheck.org article, they speak about basically the fake news of people saying he cut these teams when he did not. So that's just one thing I just wanted to make, super clear. The other thing I heard you and the other guy talk about, y'all seem like, let me see. How's that? Y'all talked about Trump announcing the travel ban, but I think y'all ended up getting to the point where y'all agreed on that because it did it. And then did you say something about him announcing a travel ban late?
Well, he did the travel ban from China after China had already been dealing with the Wuhan stuff for a number of weeks. But then after that, we had 2 months of basically silence. And then, like, just recently, he finally did a travel ban from Europe. It seemed like for a long time he was constantly publicly downplaying the fears or the worries about the virus, saying like, oh, it's just 2 people, it's just 5 people, we'll be done with this in a week. And then finally he's like, well, it's a pandemic. I've always known it's a pandemic.
Well, just to be fair, China reported to the WHO. They reported to them in January, correct? We agree on that?
Okay.
And right after that, the CDC themselves recommended they said certain people cannot travel from China off the rip. And during that time, and you can look this up and tell me if I'm lying or not, Trump was already calling for a just overall ban from China, and a lot of Democrats were calling him xenophobic.
I don't know what this has to do with anything, whether people were calling him xenophobic or not.
What I'm saying is Trump had already called for that, and then he officially said, you know what, we're doing it January 30th, correct? Okay. So I don't understand how you said that. How was that slow? I'm just confused because to me it seems like instantly Trump took it serious, said we need to do this. Everybody, including, by the way, the CDC, said, no, we might need to wait for a full-out travel ban. And then Trump ended up being right about that.
Well, aspect. So Trump didn't announce a full-out travel ban until after the WHO literally declared a global public health emergency.
My point is he already had called for it. They announced it January 30th, if I'm not mistaken.
They announced it on the 31st, but it doesn't matter if he called for it. Him calling for it doesn't mean anything if he didn't actually do it. I don't know what it means for him to call for it. Like, Trump is the president. He can do this unilaterally. He's done it before. Remember when he banned travel from 7 Muslim majority countries? He didn't need Congress to do that. So saying that the president called for something doesn't really make any sense when if he wanted to do it, he could do it.
If he wanted to do it, he could do it. But he has people. You have the Congress. You have people that not saying he can't do it on his own without Congress. I'm just saying you have to get there because the 3 branches of government, they're supposed to work together. That's the whole point of them, period. And my point is Trump was right about it the whole time. So,
well, if he was right about it the whole time, why didn't he ban it earlier? Why did he wait until after?
Well, he did.
No, he didn't. He waited until the WHO declared it a public health emergency.
Within the same month. But Trump was already saying that. Trump was already saying that we need to do this.
Well, why didn't he do it then?
What do you What do you mean? They did it slowly. Look how the travel ban from China. Look how the travel ban increased. First it was certain people can't come. Then it was this. Then it was this. Then the whole time Trump saying no, we should have nobody coming. And then January 31st, nobody came. So it's in the same month. Either way you look at it,
what I'm saying is like
response.
we already had cases reported in the United States for over a week before he finally announced a China travel ban. He waited until the WHO declared it a public health emergency. It just sounds weird to say, well, he was calling for it earlier. Trump doesn't have to call for these things. Trump can just do them.
I don't think that's how it works. I'm not saying he can't do it.
Wait, that's exactly what he did when he banned travel from the Muslim majority countries. He did it on his own. That didn't go through Congress. He just did it.
What I'm telling you is you have to get recommendations from Congress. Not have to, but presidents usually get recommendations from Congress, recommendations from the WHO, recommendations from the experts.
He didn't for the travel ban from the 7 Muslim majority countries. He just did that.
About the travel ban for the Muslim countries.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we're talking about the Chinese virus pandemic.
Well, I'm just saying that in the past, he's shown that he has the propensity to act unilaterally on his own to do like travel bans. He doesn't talk to Congress. He just like, screw it, I'm banning these people from coming. Why didn't he do it with China if he had this great insight before? You understand how this sounds like hindsight is 2020, right? Like it's easy to be like, oh, well, I knew this was the whole problem the whole time, but you didn't do anything about it. So
just so we're not beating a dead horse, just so we can move on. You're saying that instead of talking about it, he should have did it, right?
Yeah, of course. If that's what if he really felt it.
And I'm saying he was right in what he was saying. He was right in what he was saying, and then he did it January 31st, which is still not a long time. Period, point blank. That's not a long time. He said it's a week after the first case in the United States. Most of the original cases in the United States came from one nursing home. So
sure, but we already had cases reported in the United States as early as the 20th. He waited almost 2 weeks after to announce the China travel ban, but that was only after the WHO declared a global public health emergency. I'm just saying that it's not like Trump had some great insight here or takes some amazing leadership. Like you basically just followed the WHO and did it after and waited until we already had cases confirmed in the United States. And also, this isn't even getting to the fact that Europe travel ban didn't happen until 2 weeks ago?
The Europe travel ban happened when? I don't know the exact date on that. I'm not going to comment on it.
Sure, I'm pretty sure it was a couple weeks ago. It happened right before I got back to the U.S. I'm pretty sure.
Matter of fact, let's just look it up so we can be sure.
Europe travel ban, United States, coronavirus, U.S. travel ban on 26 European countries comes into force. This is on March 14th, so 15 days ago, 2 weeks and a day.
2 weeks and a day, so March 12th.
Or wait, it comes into force March 12th. So maybe a little over
March
2
12th.
weeks. Okay, yeah. So 18 days.
Little over 2 weeks. Yep. And when was it declared? Because I remember Europe was the epicenter for a little while for the virus. When was that announced?
When was it declared the epicenter?
Yeah, because Europe was declared the epicenter for the coronavirus for a bit, and then it moved again.
I don't know. I just know that the outbreak happened in Iran on the 19th of February. The Italy outbreak happened on the 21st of February. We started to have deaths on American soil on the 29th of February. And then it was 2 weeks later that Trump was like, okay, well, maybe we should ban travel from 26 European countries.
Okay, so WHO, just to say, WHO declared Europe the epicenter for the virus March 13th.
Okay.
Trump banned travel from Europe March 12th.
Okay.
Is that not? I'm confused. I'm confused. Is that not good? What?
We already had deaths on American soil 2 weeks earlier. On February 29th, we were reporting the first deaths. Trump is being completely reactionary in all of this. He hasn't gotten ahead of anything. What do you mean?
Reactionary? What? He gets information and acts on the information he gets on the professionals. Is that not how this works? Is Trump a doctor, or is he supposed to get the information from the professionals before he makes a decision?
You don't think that our professionals would have advocated for something a bit earlier? Like Italy was locking their country down as early as March 8th.
How'd that work out?
It was too late. So it didn't work out well at all. What do you mean? It sucked.
I'm just saying.
We're even later than them. What do you want me to say? The U.S. is leading the world in confirmed cases right now for coronavirus. We probably have millions more.
But who's leading deaths though? We have million more in total numbers than most of these countries because there's a thing called we have a larger population than a lot of countries. But which countries are having the most deaths from the coronavirus?
I mean, like, the fact that in January, people in the Senate, remember the big deal about them mass selling off their stocks? Kind of seems like some people saw this coming a bit earlier than Trump did and were even acting on it financially. It's kind of...
I have theories about that, but I'm not going to say it on your show.
Okay. Wait, does it have to do with Jewish people or...
Jewish people?
I don't know what kind of theories we're talking. I don't know where we're going with that, but...
No, like something that you would probably call conspiracy theories about how they knew.
Wait,
I have theories about the whole coronavirus as a whole, but I'm trying to just stick with the verifiable facts in this conversation.
Okay. I don't know how many people in the U.S. have died.
Let's look it up.
Coronavirus? Sure, but
I know it's not as much as Italy, though, right?
Maybe not. I think the projected numbers are supposed to be over 100,000.
Here now, these projected numbers, they have changed, and a few people have retracted their projection numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't projection numbers. I don't understand. Like, what does that mean? Somebody say, "Who's Bryson talking to in the live chat?" This is Destiny. I think him and Nick Fuentes debated before. Also, didn't you and Nick Fuentes debate before?
Yeah, we have.
Okay, yeah. So think about thing, right? So they say Trump handled it poorly. Where is the U.S. rank among deaths per population with the coronavirus? Where's the US rank?
So like we always keep talking about like where we're at right now. But
yes.
But the concern isn't where we're at right now. The concern is where are we going to be in a month? Like, where are we going to be in a couple weeks? Like, right at this very moment in time. Like, before we started testing, the U.S. had no confirmed cases. But that doesn't really mean much, right? Like, there's a good chance that...
It does. It does mean much, though. Because you can... At this point, we have enough confirmed cases where you can pretty much see the numbers of what's going on compared to other countries.
Okay. I mean... I guess we'll wait and see. Like, our infections, if you compare places like New York, like the infections per thousand, like the cases per thousands of people there are almost comparable. Like, there's half as many there as there were in like Wuhan, China, and it's comparable to like the Lombardy region in Italy. So I mean, I don't know what the deaths are going to turn out to be. That's not good though. Like, Italy's had one of the worst responses to this.
The reason I say awesome, I just find it like funny how you try to pick out one city to try to support your argument when in reality, all you have to do. I ask a simple question. Compared to other countries, where does the United States rank for deaths per population?
Right now, I don't think it's that far. You're doing the same thing that Trump does, where you're like, well, we're fine because right now, today, we're okay. That's not the concern.
I never said we were fine. I never said there aren't concerns. What I'm saying is, at this point in time, if you had to rank how countries,
it's probably pretty low. But like, we're just getting into it. Italy's almost done with theirs. We're just getting into the swing of this, right? Like Trump himself said that he's basically saying everybody should remain on lockdown for a whole nother month.
Yeah, he just said that.
So we're literally just starting with this right now, right? The incubation time for this virus is anywhere from 4 to 12 days. So
just starting. When was Italy's first confirmed case?
I don't remember exactly. Let's see. I know that the outbreak began on the 21st. I don't know when the first confirmed case in Italy was, though. I'm sorry. The outbreak began on the 21st of February, like over a month ago. I don't know when the first confirmed case is.
So in our first case was the 20th, correct? Confirmed case was the 20th, correct? In the United States?
In Washington, yes.
And your statement was that they're done with theirs. We're just getting into this. It seems like if I'm not mistaken, the United States had a confirmed case before Italy.
Sure, but it wasn't. But it wasn't in like our major population centers. This is why I'm bringing up places like New York. Like population, like per capita, is kind of a weird way to measure this because like I wouldn't expect this virus to spread like crazy through all of our rural areas, right? Like the places that are going to get hardest by this are going to be like the most densely populated cities. So places like LA, places like New York, places like San Francisco, Seattle. Like I don't expect this to like destroy like the Midwest or all the rural cities there, right?
But I'm saying the way you create the data on viruses per country is for the country. You have to incorporate the country's population versus the death rate for the country or those that's affected. That's how stats and data is gathered in
Sure,
these type of
but
situations.
that's why I'm pointing to like a particular, like when I talk about New York, like I'm comparing New York to like the Lombardy region, Italy, like because they're comparable, like huge cities. Like that is a population 10 million. They had 35,000 cases. New York is a population of 20 million. They've got a confirmed 43,000 cases at the time of this article written. I don't know if those have gone up dramatically since then, but like we can look at like comparable cities to compare how our outbreak is going to fare from one to the next. But using an
Can we? I think using a country to figure out which country. If the question is which country has handled the pandemic better, you just simply look at the spread of the country, and then you simply look at how many people died from it in the two countries, how many people are made it through it in the two countries. I mean, if you want to be completely honest, who knows how many people actually had the coronavirus that are younger and just went through it? I had the flu in late December, and I felt like I was gonna die. Made it through it, and now I'm good. But that could have been the corona for all I know. You know, so what I'm saying is, I mean, we start getting into like cities. I mean, a lot of people probably had it overall and just got over it. But if we're looking at confirmed, verifiable cases, comparing that to the death rate of each country, United States of America has had a better response to it than that country. Matter of fact, United States of America has had a better response to it by the statistics in that aspect than most countries. So I would like to say, if we're going to base it on statistics and not opinions, Trump has handled this pandemic better than mostly anybody. I mean, based on the numbers.
Okay, so where do you think we're going to be at with this in 2 weeks? With like hospitals complaining that they're running out of materials, with people having to reuse protective gear over and over again.
Well, actually, by the way, I'm not discrediting whoever said that or the reports on that, but there is a video by Project Veritas that was just released, sort of debunking that whole notion in theory. Not debunking it overall, but debunking it in places that claim they was running out of stuff, not running out of stuff. Also, most of that is on the state, and I already know you're gonna say is up to the federal government to help the states coordinate. I saw you say that, and yes, I actually agree with that. But that is the state's job, and we're getting it done. Ventilators, there was a bunch found in New York already. Trump, they're already working on a cure of sorts. The thing that the person tried to claim they died from, but it wasn't what Trump talked about. They're just dumbasses that drank fish tank oil. Fish tank cleaner. But so they're working on that. The testing for that is already looking promising. So we're already rolling out a cure. We're getting the testing.
So we're working on tests, but we're not rolling out a cure. We have no idea how far we're from that right now.
No. I say we're working on it, and the testing so far has been positive.
Sure, I mean we've been like working on things, but the idea that we're close to a cure or even close to a vaccine, like we're still probably a year plus out from that. Like,
that's a theory. I personally think we're a little bit closer, but we will see.
Personally, based on what?
Like, I mean, because they're already saying the I forgot what it's called. I can't pronounce it, and I don't want to butcher the name. But they said it's already showing promising signs. All the top experts and everybody already saying it's showing promising signs.
Yeah, promising science still mean like through human trials and everything. Like that still has to take. That's going to take like at least a year. Like we can't just start like printing a vaccine like immediately. Like vaccines on average take over 5 years to make. Like we're not going to have this vaccine rolled out in 2 months by like Easter or something.
By Easter.
Yeah, like Fauci literally said it was going to be at least a year yesterday.
Sounds like a good day. Sounds like a good day to me. But I just personally think we're gonna speed that process up, and I think it's gonna get rolled out in a few months, maybe not 2, but I think within the next 6 months we'll have that rolled out. But that's just my personal opinion. It's just a projection. Projections don't really mean anything, really.
Why were we so late? So we had our same first case was reported around South Korea's same first reported case. Why were we so late and so horrible in getting out testing compared to South Korea? If Trump is such a great leader.
Well, the one thing that is true, we was a little slow on the testing kits. That is true, and everybody's currently trying to figure out how, but it doesn't matter because testing is getting rolled out now. we're getting them in. I'm not in South Korea. I don't know how they got it first.
Well,
but
like the
South Korea,
CDC is in charge of the testing kits. Do you think more funding for the CDC might have helped here? Maybe.
No, did the CDC say that?
Well, the CDC are the ones that developed the tests, and the CDC was the budget.
Yes, but did they say that was the reason? Because they would have said that. They reported them saying that.
I don't know if they specifically come out and said that. It just seems strange.
Oh no, I know they haven't. It was like really honestly it was a rhetorical because I know they haven't said anything about it. So I don't think that I don't know what the issue was. That's just the true answer. No, none of us really know. We can guess, but my next statement was going to be South Korea has a population of, I'm assuming, 50 million people?
Well, but you wanted to use per capita earlier. Even if we look at the per capita testing that South Korea did, it blew people out of the water. It's not like they tested more people.
Yes, they did. People are claiming South Korea did a better job than everybody in South Korea as a model for what's going on, and they actually just had testing available for everybody rather than what we have is targeting testing, what they call it. Mm-hmm. But the reason we have targeting testing is because our country has over 300 million people. You know how much resources it would take for us to just give every 300 million people testing.
Well, we don't know. Well, South Korea didn't test everybody, but also I'm talking on a per capita level. We dramatically trailed South Korea. I'm not saying we have to test everybody, but we've got more people to test, but we also have a way larger economy and a way larger federal budget.
Yes, but what I'm saying is that's the thing people were touting about what they did versus what the other country did that's close to them. In the other country, they did targeting testing, and people said it didn't do as good, it worked as good as what South Korea did. So a lot of people are touting the fact that they didn't do targeting testing for the reason that their model is being looked at currently. And what I'm saying is it's probably easier for them to do that type of testing since they have a way smaller population than the United
population
States.
Isn't way smaller than the U.S. It's a smaller population, but it's not like this is a country of 2 million people. South Korea had
50.
Yeah, they had over 50 million people. That's a lot of people. 50 million. Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a small number of people. We have over 300 million people in the United States.
Wait, yeah, but why wouldn't we use a per capita here to determine how many tests are being given when you wanted to use a per capita earlier?
I'm not saying you. I never say you can't use a per capita. I literally said, yes, South Korea has been reported to do better than everybody else, and that's why everybody is trying to current them as a model. My argument was the actual model, not yours, not what you're saying, not that they did a better job. My thing is, would that model work for the United States of America? And of course, population size matters on which model could work in certain countries. The same reason I don't want to get into a runoff debate, but socialism could potentially work for a city, even maybe a state. But as far as history goes, when they try to do it for a large number of people, it fails. So that's what I'm saying. Would that model work for us?
Okay. I mean, as of March 8th, South Korea was testing 3,692 people per million. The United States was testing 5. So I guess maybe we can't do it. That was March 8th. We're 3 weeks out from that. So I know we've done a lot more tests since then. I think by March 20th, I'm pretty sure South Korea, I think, still dwarfed the U.S. in number of tests done, even as an absolute number, which is here's a chart of South Korea has done over 300,000 tests by March 20th, and the U.S. has done 100,000. So they've done 3 times as many tests on 1/6 of the population, and we have an economy that dwarfs South Korea's. How is this possible without this being a massive failure of the federal government and the CDC?
A massive failure for other, but we are getting testing done, correct? If you want to critique something,
late.
Listen, if you want to critique something and say something could have been done better, that is cool. But when you say something like Trump has done a bad job responding to this, that's just inaccurate per the numbers. That makes
which
makes
numbers?
No the numbers on how many people is dying from this, or how many people are infected by it per capita versus other countries. If we're basing it on sheer
we don't
numbers,
know how many are infected because we're so late on testing. This is a self-sustaining argument, my dude.
Based on confirmed cases that we have versus other, that's the case in every country. In every country, you don't know how many people actually have or got got coronavirus. So there's probably the numbers are probably more in every country, but based on the cases that we know of to be factual. I don't want to debate imaginary things.
Okay.
So
Do you want to commit? I'm curious. Do you want to commit to reconvene to have this conversation again in 2 weeks and see where we're at?
I would love that. And if what you're saying is right,
Mm-hmm.
then I will be like, you're right. But if you're wrong, I would love to hear you say, okay, boom, there you go.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be interested in seeing again, I guess, where we're at in 2 weeks. And seeing how, because like you've already got like a bunch of places that are complaining about like lack of equipment, having to reuse and re-clean like the N95 masks and everything, and then like fighting over ventilators and everything. Yeah, I don't know. It just seems like our federal response to this was like super jumbled, but I mean, everybody's talking about Corona all the time, I guess. Are there any other big, I don't know, are there any other big topics you want to talk about, or do you just want to talk about Corona?
No, I mean, of course, now, before I asked this, I saw you debate with Hassan Piker before. I know y'all are friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw you criticize far leftists a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So where are you at on the spectrum? Because you're obviously left, but you don't seem to be far left, because I watched your debate with Hassan like months ago.
I am very far left. I'm just not a socialist or communist.
Okay, so you are far left. You're just not socialist far. Hassan Piker left.
No. Or yes, I'm agreeing with you, yeah.
You don't wear shirts that say ban millionaires and billionaires and shit.
No,
like
that's
that.
stupid as fuck, yeah.
Okay, so we probably disagree on a lot, but I don't know specifically what we probably disagree on, which is probably everything politically.
Do you think that the money going out to help individuals is good? That they just approved in Congress, the cash payments to individuals and families in the U.S.?
Well, my view on that is, well, we will have to see, because that's a lot of fucking money. That's a lot of money going out. Granted, I feel like instead of only bailing out banks or businesses, I feel like this is actually bailing out the American people.
Yeah.
But in the same token, I would love to see how this affects, because I think our currency value is going to decrease, of course. But I just want to see how this affects after this is all over, because that will have the biggest effect of this. It's not the virus itself. It's things like this, trillions and trillions. What is estimated to be $6 trillion?
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of money.
I don't know what that final estimate ended up being, because they were floating around a lot of different things. I don't know what finally got passed, but
well, I think what finally got passed ended up being the estimated $6 billion. That's a lot of money. I'm not against it or necessarily for it right now. This is one of those things where we'll have to see and deal with it as we get to it. So I don't really have a definite opinion on it.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know.
What is your opinion on it?
I think it's good. You want to keep the economy going. You want to keep people not like getting kicked out of their houses or falling behind on their bills. And no cash payments whatsoever would require a lot of weird shit to happen. Like everybody would have to suspend all payments for a number of months. It would just be like a catastrophe. Basically, like the goal is that after the pandemic is over, you want everything to get back to normal very, very quickly. You don't want there to be a bunch of people that are now homeless or a bunch of people that are behind on everything. You want to just like get back into the swing of things like we never stopped, basically, right?
Yes, and that's what I feel like is the goal, because if you let our economy go too far under, then we will be screwed eternally. So I do think it can potentially be just the best option we have for the situation at hand.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to see. So what else? I'm sure we disagree on. I'm sure we disagree on the live here far left.
Yeah, probably.
How do you feel about? Oh, I mean, I'm a very controversial person, so I don't know what you're willing to discuss.
I mean, I'll talk about anything. I don't really care.
So I'm assuming you're pro-abortion.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just 100% sure it's murder, and it should be illegal. I
mean, we can run down that rabbit hole for a few minutes if you want.
Hey, let's do it. I'm
down. Okay. Why do you think that abortion is murder?
Really simply put, me and you are talking right now, which is proof that it's a human life. I don't like, you don't even have to dig. You don't even have to dig even to the science. Like, I'm not one of those conservatives going to bring up how most colleges say life begins at conception, because I don't really care. I don't need that. We already know even those cells, call it whatever you want, it's a human life. It's meant to be a human life. That's the whole point of it, period. So aborting it in the name is aborting human life. And that's just what it is.
Sure, but we're not really looking for like a semantic argument here, right? We're looking for at what point does a human life become worth defending, right? Like, at what point do you grant moral consideration to a human life? So what if somebody says, like, I don't think a human life is worth moral consideration until they have, like, a conscious experience, right? That's what we ought to be defending. How would you respond to an argument like this?
I mean, that could be your view, but I feel like personally that argument is just really to make an excuse for what's going on, because like we know it's life, period. I mean, there's no real argument for it. We know it's life. So when do you think it becomes valuable or worth defending? Why isn't it worth defending when someone is pregnant? I'm confused, because at that point, when you know somebody is pregnant, you can't get an abortion without being pregnant. So if we know somebody is pregnant, then you know for a fact you are giving life. You are hosting a whole nother set of a whole nother DNA in your body. When you eat, it eats. When you drink, it drinks.
Sure,
you know
these are all things that are true of a fetus, but that we're still like not at the question of like, why is it worth defending at just 1 or 2 weeks?
I am, because that's why it's worth defending, because honestly, that's fucked. I mean, you know what I call that? I said this on Twitter. I said that's called life privilege. People that's alive like to talk about people that's trying to be alive. These babies are really trying to consume and eat to grow. They're doing that. I mean, of course, it's natural, but that's what they're doing. And you got grown adults talking about, no, we should not defend that life because I don't think it's a valuable life yet. Man, so and then I know this is the age-old argument that people are like, oh, here you with this, but what if that was with you? Like, then you literally wouldn't be here. I'm like, that's a crazy argument for somebody to be alive.
Well, we can't really consider like, what if we didn't exist, right? We can't really conceive of that. I guess like a comparable. Well, no, you can't, because if you didn't exist, like you wouldn't be able to talk about not existing because you wouldn't have the ability to consider it. Right?
But that's my point, though.
Well, but that's my point. I don't know how we can say that it's a bad if you don't exist to even conceive of your existence. Like, how can you assign a value to that, right? It's kind of like thinking like, what, like, would this make a dead person happy or sad? Like, generally, emotions or thoughts are functions of your like mode of existence, and if you don't exist, you can't really have said thoughts. So if you ask me like, well, if you didn't exist, wouldn't that upset you? No, I can't. It wouldn't upset me because I wouldn't exist. I can't have that feeling, right?
That's not what I was saying. My whole point was that's called life privilege. I didn't really add an emotion on the person or ask a question of emotion. I'm just saying you wouldn't exist if that happened to you. I didn't ask a question. I'm not saying that's just it.
Sure, but there's like a million things that could have happened where I wouldn't exist. Maybe my mom and my dad don't meet. Maybe my mom decides not to have kids. Maybe like there's a million things, but that's such a, you can't consider what never happened or what.
Well, when you say it's a million things, that's a lot different than the one thing that we know is happening. Somebody's pregnant with you, so somebody aborting you is not the same as you and your parents not meeting. No, we know you're supposed to come, but
it would be all the same. It would be all the same to me, right? If you're trying, because you're saying it's life privilege. Well, yeah, if I'm like a 2-week-old fetus and say my mom falls down the stairs on accident and I die, versus I get aborted, like that doesn't make a difference to me in terms of talking from the perspective of the embryo. Like I either don't exist or before the embryo. Like if I don't exist, I don't exist. Like that's all the same. Whether I'm aborted before I even have a conscious experience or whether I just never come about, like it's the exact same condition. I don't exist. There is an infinite number of things that don't exist. Like it's hard to take into consideration what any of those things that don't exist would have thought about themselves. Like it's a weird thing.
The simple different thing among that makes things different is when somebody is pregnant, we know what that means. That's common sense. You don't need a doctor to tell you what that means. So what I'm saying is, if you know somebody's pregnant, what that means it's not an accident. It's not an accident. It's not. Oh man, it's not even a miscarriage, even though a lot of these miscarriage numbers are lies because women buy pills to force miscarriages. But if you have it's not an accident, you're purposely aborting.
Yeah, sure, but I only bring this up because you kept talking from the perspective of the fetus. That like at 1 week or 2 weeks or 1 month, like the fetus can't make these value statements in terms of why it's being aborted. It doesn't have the mental wherewithal to do that. When you talk about how like a life is a life, so it's worth defending. What about a person that's like, let's say you get a person that's brain dead in a hospital? Should we be keeping all of these people indefinitely on life support forever?
I mean, if somebody's brain dead at that point, you like a family member. Wait, and I know you about to try to compare that to a woman making a decision, but the difference is this is not somebody that's about to be born. This is somebody that's on life support to die. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, what about just an old and sick person that's on life support that's going to die in a week or two? Should we just kill them immediately since they're about to die?
Nah, if you know it's gonna, if you know the, my grandpa just recently died, and I mean, they asked we wanted to put him on, like just let him die, and we just just keep treating him until it's over, And then they ended up sending him home, and he ended up dying. He ended up dying home.
Sure,
but that's a decision. When you know somebody, since that person was able to live and grow, you got family members that was able to watch that person live and grow, you can sort of tell what that person would rather do. Like if I was in my hospital bed, my family already know Bryson. He is not trying to be in no super struggle mode. If it's that bad where he can't even talk, walk, do anything, I know he'll rather just you just let him
so
do,
it seems like we're comparing like the conscious experience of a person, and that's what we're using to determine whether or not they ought to have moral consideration. So if a person is lying in bed and they're brain dead, we'd say, okay, well, we just kill this person because that's it, they're brain dead, there's no experience there. If you've got like a 2-week-old fetus, it's essentially, for all intents and purposes, brain dead, doesn't have a conscious experience. Well, yeah, it doesn't.
No,
right?
It's a clear difference. One is on his way out, one is on his way in. You don't know.
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry, your mic cuts off for a second. You said one is on its way out, one is on its way in. What did you say?
One is on his way out. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
One is on his way out, one is on his way in. So you can't determine. Like I said, the reason it's easier to determine somebody that was able to live all the way through. You sort of know that person, and you can probably get a gist of what that person will want. So it makes it better for somebody to make that decision for that person. That's different than a baby being born due to you getting in the bed, popping that vagina wide open for somebody to get in it, and the man recklessly getting into it without a condom.
Yeah, so but the thing is that like that fetus at 2 weeks old or 3 weeks old, it doesn't want anything. It has no preferences. It doesn't have any desires. It doesn't have any conscious experiences.
Yes, it do. It does want something for a fact.
It doesn't.
Does it consume food?
Yeah.
So it wants food. It has to because it consumes.
Whoa. Wanting implies some mental state that can express a preference. Just because something doesn't mean we would say it wants to. Does the sun want to undergo nuclear fusion in its core? It does, doesn't it? But that doesn't mean it wants to, right? Like that doesn't make any sense. Like just because something does something doesn't mean it has a desire to do so, right?
Well, I mean, you just sort of ruined that for yourself because you said, of course it wants to, but does it want to? I mean, does it want to? I mean, of course it wants the food because they know it has to do that to survive naturally.
But it doesn't know that. It just does. It's just a biological
process. How does it not know that? It's natural for it. It's natural for it to know that, which is why it's consuming it. It's natural.
But it's just doing a thing. It does. Like, do you want your heart to beat? Like, is that why it's beating, or does it just do? Right?
Well,
like
your heart beats, but I want it to beat, which is why I do certain things to make sure that thing beat. You feel me?
Yeah, but it does it on its own. You don't have to express a desire for that to happen, right? Like this is literally just like chemistry. Like a fetus is just chemistry in action. That's it. Like it's not wanting or expressing a desire or making a choice or having a preference. Like,
but it's naturally consuming. It's naturally consuming because that's a part of nature. Because it has to do that to survive. Because if it doesn't consume, it won't live anyway.
Sure, I'm not saying it's not a part of nature. I'm just saying just because something does something doesn't mean it's expressing a desire or want. Like, would we say that cancer wants to grow in the body? Like,
yes.
But no, it doesn't have like.
That's what cancer is.
But it doesn't have wants or desires. Like it just.
How can you say that? Yes, it does.
What is a want or a desire to you?
Viruses have wants and desires, which is why they act how they act, though.
But no, it's not like a virus could choose to do something else. It doesn't have the mental capacity for that. It just does as it does. It has some
a virus wants somebody it can easily attack, especially somebody with a weak immune system, so it can do what it wants to do and really kill you from the inside out. That's what it wants. And if somebody with a strong immune system, they don't like that as much. That's not as fun for the virus, is it?
Yeah, but they'll still go to the same place and see what happens.
they will do that. But my whole thing is, these have one desire. Just because they're not human, don't mean they don't have one. That's why they act in the way they act.
Wait, so would you say that like does fire want to like melt like
burn?
Stuff like
Does fire wants to burn?
Yeah.
Yes, fire wants to burn. That's the whole point of fire.
Okay. I guess I feel like we're using want to mean two very, very different things here. I don't think that you normally would use the word want like this. I feel like you're doing this just for the sake of the argument, because I don't think anybody genuinely thinks that like fire expresses a desire to burn, or a virus expresses a desire to infect someone the same way that like a conscious person with agency might express a desire or want to do something. That these are fundamentally different things.
Well, you're using there, but if we're using my definition, that's exactly what a virus wants to do. So,
but viruses don't want; they just do. They don't have wants or desires. Like, they can't even move on their own. Like viruses literally can't even walk. Like
are viruses alive? Are they like alive things?
It's debatable. It depends on how you define life. I don't know.
Debatable?
Yes.
What do you mean? Things can't grow if it's not alive.
It's not really that simple. Viruses don't grow on their own. They need a host cell to attach to start manufacturing more copies of themselves.
He doesn't understand the basic
concepts. How can they need
concepts.
all that if they're not alive?
How can they what?
How can they need all that to do what it needs to do if it's not alive? How does it know it needs all of that alive?
Well, it doesn't know anything. Viruses have like, I think it's like a specific combination of proteins that when they meet a cell, it can attach on a cell, and then it inserts its own RNA and it starts manufacturing copies of itself. It doesn't have like a desire or will to do anything.
I'm saying though, like, I mean, but these things are living things. A fungus, some funguses are living.
Funguses are way more complicated than viruses. So some people would agree, or most people would say like fungi or whatever are alive. Funguses.
Well, most people will agree that viruses are alive too. I was literally taught that in high school.
No, I promise you weren't. Viruses, no, scientists don't really know. I promise you that you can look it up later. People don't know if we consider viruses to be living or not living things. It's like a kind of a weird. It's a really weird area. It's like one of the most fundamental aspects. Like, would you consider like strands of DNA? Would you consider that to be alive? Like, if I just gave you a strand of DNA, is that alive?
I'll have to like look at it, see it moving and being active.
Okay, well, viruses don't move, so. And they're not active.
Well, they do attack certain things that they have a certain host.
Yeah, but they don't move to attack it. They just attach to a cell because it's basically like if I were to like take a big ball of rubber bands and then tie like a magnet to it and then throw it across the ocean. If it were to find like another magnet, it would just attach to that, and then maybe when it attached, that's all a virus is. It doesn't like actually go out and it's like Velcro.
I know how viruses work, which is why I'm saying that it's an alive thing. But I mean, you already admitted yourself that some people say it's alive and some people say it's not a living thing. Well, but I mean, I don't understand how something. I don't know. I just don't understand how you can say it's not alive. But I mean, we're going off into the weeds. This is about abortion, which
sure.
I'm
curious. Would you say that like a computer virus is alive?
A computer virus?
Yeah.
In a digital way, it's alive. No, because that's somebody using it. That's somebody has to have complete control over it, install it in your computer. But I mean, I don't know. That's a weird question, actually.
American crematoriums go burr.
I wouldn't consider a computer virus to be alive.
But why not? It's the same thing as a normal virus. It's just a package of things that attach.
It's not an actual. I know, which is why they call it a computer virus, because it acts similarly to a regular virus, but it's digital.
Okay.
It's not like in the real world.
Well, I mean, it's a real thing recorded on some hard drive somewhere, right? Like it has to exist somewhere on a drive, right?
Yeah.
I'm just curious, what is your definition of life? Like, what does something need to be considered alive to you?
My definition for it, I mean, it's really anything. Flowers are alive. Trees are alive. That's always been my definition, though, because, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you can't grow apples and grow oranges and grow leaves if you're not alive. I mean, if it's not a living thing.
Well, I mean, we can grow things. I can grow like a stalactite. I think I can grow that by like dripping water somewhere if it's freezing. That can grow, but would we say that that's alive? Like a formation in a cave, like rocks? Are those alive?
Yeah. I'll say anything that acts on that nature, especially with nature, it's alive. It has to be. But I mean, it's widely known to be living things or things that's alive. Like especially flowers, they get called alive and dead all the time because they are alive or dead. I mean, but if you talk about, I feel like using the human aspect of alive and making that the only thing that can be considered alive. But I mean.
Okay. Would you say like islands are alive because when volcanoes erupt, like more rocks grow out and they grow, like, or are clouds alive?
Are clouds alive? I don't know. I don't know a lot about clouds, big dog.
I mean, it's like moisture collects in the air and clouds form and get bigger.
Flowers.
They eat water.
Yeah, sound alive to me, bro.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, I'm just saying it's not. I mean, but I've always told you these things are living things, though. I mean, living. I mean, that's what it is.
Well, I mean, yeah, but I'm just curious. I don't know. I was just curious what your definition of like what does living mean? Like, what does it mean to be alive? Like, what is a live thing for you or whatever?
Let's look up the literal definition. What would I look up? Life definition.
Well, I'm curious because you're telling me that you think a virus is alive, so it must meet there
Well,
must be like some
well-
criteria or threshold for like, oh well, this is a living thing and this isn't or whatever.
Well, I got a question. Do you want to know the definition of life?
Well, I mean, there's like I don't think there is an
I am
actual
not gonna
definition
be
of life. Like
alive
it's
after
debated
this.
or contested, right?
Well, I mean, you can say it's debated, but I mean, just one I found says the condition that distinguishes animals and plants from inorganic matter, including the capacity for growth, reproduction, functional activity, and continual change preceding death.
Yeah.
That sounds like a great definition to me.
Okay, well, viruses don't match almost any of that. They can't grow on their
How?
own. They don't reproduce on their own, and they don't change before death. So viruses aren't alive then.
You're adding.
I love how desperate.
It has functional activity because it's doing something.
Wait, no, I never said functional activity. I said they don't grow. Viruses don't grow. Right? They don't on their own. They don't reproduce. They have to take over a cell.
You keep adding that in there. You keep adding on your own. It's not on your. This definition said nothing about on your own. That's that. Like you're adding to it. I mean, I guess you can.
Okay, wait. So I'm just reading. So it's saying including the capacity for growth, right? Viruses do not grow.
The capacity for growth. They don't grow.
No, they can't.
Viruses don't grow inside somebody.
No, they don't.
So cancer doesn't grow inside your lungs.
Cancer is not a virus.
Well, of course not a virus, but I mean something of that nature. Are you saying because you also said cancer? You also said that wasn't you said that wasn't alive.
No, I said cancers can't have wants or needs or desires. Cancer is generally made of like what would be considered living tissue, of course.
But we was talking about something being alive or not, and then that was the conversation going.
Well, no, I only brought up cancer because I said we wouldn't say cancer wants to grow. Cancer doesn't have a desire to grow, but cancer is a living thing, sure. I mean, it's a living tissue, right?
Okay. You saying viruses like a cold or the flu or things like that nature can't grow?
No, cancer doesn't get big. Or I'm sorry, viruses don't get bigger. They just there's more of themselves that they make after hijacking another cell.
Exactly. So to me, that's growth, and then it has functional activity. So I mean,
well, no. So, sorry, this is getting into a lot of biology. When you talk about like the capacity for growth, when a scientist or a biologist says capacity for growth, they're talking about some sort of system that can maintain homeostasis, so it has some internal system and has a metabolism. It inputs some matter, it produces that or generates energy off of it. It grows and maintains its system, and then it grows in that way. That's what they mean when they say capacity for growth. Not just makes more of itself. That's not growth, right?
Making more of yourself isn't growth.
That's not growing, no.
I mean, I guess so. So, still, by the definition, I think a virus is a living thing. By the way, just so you know.
Okay.
We understand, yeah. But regardless,
would you say
abortion,
that like when a woman gives birth to a baby, did the woman grow because now there's two of them?
Well, the woman's stomach does grow.
Well, but when she gives birth to the baby, did she grow now as an entity because now there's two people? It went from one woman to one woman and one child?
She gave life and now she's going back. She can go back to regular.
Well, I'm just curious if that counts as growing. Let's say a woman gives birth to quadruplets. Did she just grow a whole bunch after she gives birth because now there's five of them?
The woman isn't growing. The woman is the host. The woman is the host for the human that's growing inside of her body. Right? So the woman wouldn't be what it grows. The thing that's growing is the life inside of her body.
Okay, so the woman doesn't grow the same way that a virus doesn't grow. A virus just goes in and it makes more of itself. It doesn't actually grow on its own. It just
So you're comparing the mother to the virus.
Oh, kind of. In terms of producing children, I'm saying that making copies of yourself isn't growth. No one would say that this is growing.
So are you telling me if I just type in, matter of fact, don't even stress yourself. You know what's funny? The first thing, viruses are alive. ScienceAlert.com. There you go. First thing that popped up. Viruses are alive. if only because life is a widespread system of evolving chemistry. Not everyone agrees with this distinction based on the fact that, like rocks, viruses do not have self-generating and self-sustaining actions. And then it says, and then it goes down the list on why they consider viruses to be alive. But it is argued, like you said earlier, but some scientists do consider viruses to be alive.
Okay, so I Googled the same thing, and I noticed that you're reading me the second result from 2015.
No, I was reading the first result on mine, but I'm using Bing.
So. Okay, the first result I have are from 2017 from Science Alert is, are viruses alive?
So they switched it up. They switched it up 2 years later. Okay.
Well, but that's my whole point. I'm saying that whether or not a virus is considered living is kind of like a weirdly contested thing. There's not like a consensus on it. It just depends on how you define life, which is totally arbitrary.
But yeah, but when you said that, I actually doubled down and said, so that's what you're saying. But then we went on this, we still went down a little rabbit hole of arguing about it, even though we just both disagreed or agreed on what life was or isn't.
What?
But we both have, basically, my whole point is, once you said that is widely contested. I never disagree with that statement.
Oh, okay. Because it sounded like you were laughing at me earlier, saying, "Well, of course they're alive."
I'm saying they're alive based on how I feel about they're alive, but there's also scientists that think they're alive too. Correct?
Depending on how you want to define life, I mean, I guess.
But see, that's the point. Me and you are sort of defining life in that aspect, two different things, but we can't disagree on what's a life inside of a woman being pregnant, though.
Well, it was never whether or not a fetus was a life or not. We can agree that that's a life. What we're trying to agree on is whether or not it's something that's worth moral consideration. So, like, for instance, a brain-dead person, that's a life. That's a living thing. Their organs are still functioning to some extent, and you can keep them alive on machines indefinitely, well, at least until their body ages out. But we wouldn't consider that to be a quote-unquote alive person, such that we would give them moral consideration. They're basically brain-dead. So do you think that brain dead people should be kept alive forever and on hospital machines?
No, I'm just saying it's an alive. You said we wouldn't say that in a alive.
Well, like we wouldn't say that we give them they're quote unquote alive, like they should have moral consideration. Like, oh, we need to keep this brain dead person's body alive because the body has life the same way that a fetus does.
But isn't asking the family what should happen? Isn't that moral consideration?
But the family themselves would probably say, well, we can probably dump this body if they're in a coma forever.
Repeat that. I'm sorry.
If the person's going to be in a coma forever, generally the family agrees. It's like, okay, well, we're done with this.
But even the fact that you're asking family what they should do with it, that is like that has to be like the definition of moral consideration.
Kind of, but I mean, like, if a family is making a decision that seems at ends with the person, like, the state will come in even and supersede, right? Like, the state will come in sometimes and be like, okay, well, no, like, this person's dead, like, we're not going to support them anymore on life support.
In the end, they send the person home to the family. That's what they choose to do.
Sure.
Yep.
So you think in the case of a brain dead person, you think that the family should have the right to decide that?
The right to decide what?
If the body should live or die?
No, what I'm saying is, of course, that's moral consideration.
Yeah. Okay. So then the family ought to have the right then to decide whether or not that person from the hospital, the brain dead person, like, should live or die, basically, or whether they should have the body alive or kill the body, right?
Correct.
Okay, so
you're about to say
you're
you should
pro-choice?
Have no, incorrect. I was waiting for you to say that, which is why I answered the question so bluntly. And I answered this question already and differentiated earlier because I knew this was coming. I already said the difference between a person that is brain dead, that lived the life that they family know and can decide based on a real moral value because they know the person, is different than somebody killing something that didn't even have the chance to live yet. So it's not even a comparable situation of somebody being on their deathbed because they won't be able, because they won't be able to live, versus
how can you take into account the consideration of something that doesn't exist yet? How is it even possible? Like, a fetus doesn't exist. It has no stated preference. It doesn't have a desire to exist or not desire to exist. It doesn't have anything like that if it has no conscious experience.
Okay, you keep saying it doesn't have a desire to exist, but we already went through this. It's consuming because it wants to live. I'm confused. If it doesn't consume, it'll die. I'm confused.
Do you think that some fetuses are evil? Like, a fetus is evil and wants to murder its mother?
No.
Okay, what about, like, ectopic pregnancies? So pregnancies that occur outside of the womb, in, like, the fallopian tubes or whatever, that become harmful or dangerous or even lethal sometimes to mothers. Would you say that those are babies that want to kill their mothers?
No.
Why?
No, you talk about like when hold on, repeat that again. You talking about the cases where a mother like life is at stake?
No,
Because,
yeah. So places where like
yeah.
when the fetus gets when the fetus is created and then it embeds itself into like there's like little fallopian tubes that go from like ovaries to the uterus. Like when a baby gets pregnant outside of the uterus and it's a really
yeah.
Does that baby want
mishap.
to kill its mom?
It's a mishap. That's just a mishap in nature. But you know, it's not a mishap in nature. It's you choosing to abort a baby. But what I am going to tell you is I do believe that in the case of 2 lives, which is super duper rare, is even more rare than somebody getting pregnant from rape.
Well, yeah, no, I'm not talking about what's rare. I'm just saying that, like, in case, the baby is killing the mom. Does the baby want to kill its mom because it's
no? That's what I'm about to say. Well, I answered that. But my thing I was about to say is, in that case, I do agree that there should be a case for abortion because at that point, 2 lives are at stake.
I'm not even talking about if they should be abortion. I'm just saying that just because something is doing a particular thing doesn't mean we would say that it has a desire to do a particular thing. So, for instance, I think it's rare, but I think sometimes twins can kill each other in the womb. Would we say that's
super rare?
Yeah, but would we say that kid wanted to kill its twin? Well, no,
that's what a doctor would call a mishap, correct?
Yeah, but we're not talking about whether it's a mishap or not. We're talking about whether or not it wants to do it.
But see, once again, it's a clear difference. You're bringing up rare cases to argue against what is, which is somebody in the womb is consuming because it has to consume to live. That to me is just simple. I mean, I don't understand really what's really the
Okay, sure. I understand. Okay, I think we're kind of at rock bottom on the on the abortion thing. Do you want to hit any more before we call it? Any other big topics?
Nah, I don't care, dude.
Okay. Well, hey, if you
what else we agree on? What else we disagree on?
I mean, probably.
Hold on.
What? Yeah,
you ask questions. I gotta get your view.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Hold on. So we both agree that an unborn child is life at any point, correct?
It's living, sure. It's a living thing, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a living thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to agree that an abortion is exactly which is taking away life, correct?
Yeah.
So we know it's taking away life.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why do you think it's okay for a mother to take away life out of convenience?
We take away life out of convenience all the time.
Keep going. Explain that, please.
Yeah, like for instance, so like we eat meat, right? We take tons of life out of convenience here. We're killing tons of animals constantly.
Yeah, but animal life is not equal to human life.
I don't think that. I would argue that like non-sentient fetus life isn't the same as like a human that is like thinking and having a conscious experience. If you want to ask me more specific, well, because it's not having a conscious experience, we can't know what it's like to be a non-thinking.
So you think?
Mm-hmm.
So you think it's okay for a mother to take a life out of convenience?
Yeah, we take lives out of convenience all the time. I wouldn't make an exception for
a human life out of convenience.
Because we take human lives out of convenience all the time. So people that are brain dead in hospitals, for instance. Now, if you're telling me, is it okay for somebody to kill a conscious creature or a conscious person or human that is actively thinking and having an experience, that's where I would draw the line and say, well, no, these are things that are probably worthy of moral consideration. So like I think fetuses at some number of some number of months, like 4 or 5 or 6 months in the womb, start to have like a conscious experience. Okay, at that point, it seems pretty fucked up to kill this thing. But at like 3 or 4 or 5 weeks or whatever, if they don't have a conscious experience, then yeah, sure, it's just whatever. Like what are we even protecting? We can't know what it's like to be.
Damn, it's like whatever.
Yeah.
Hold on. Whoa. Wait a minute. It's whatever. Even though we know it's life, so it's like even though you know what it's supposed to be, it's just like fuck it.
Well, you keep saying life, but you probably eat meat. So I mean,
yeah, and that comes from a life, a cow, a delicious cow that got killed, got murdered. Mm-hmm. For me to eat this delicious burger.
Yeah, so you're okay killing or murdering life out of convenience, right? So not all life.
I'm okay with taking animal lives to eat because that is how life goes. Like literally, that's a part of life. Animals eat other animals to feed. This is a part of nature. This is how it works.
Ever since 1970 in the United States with Roe v. Wade, a part of life is also abortion. So I mean, that's a part. Bro. You can't just say it's a part of life to justify actions from moral agents. Like we can choose what's a part of life. Some people, for instance, choose to be vegan. For them, it's not a part of life to kill animals. You can't say that something is because it is. That's just
Destiny.
What?
Come on, bruh. Like, bruh. Bruh. Listen. you having to first off, we need a balanced diet. Humans need a balanced diet to be healthy.
You don't need to eat anywhere near the amount of animals that you do, and you don't even need to technically consume animals at
First
all.
off, yes, you do technically. You do need to consume animals, but don't get it confused. My diet sucks. I will probably die before I'm 70.
Sure,
it's okay.
Even if we wanted to say that we did need to eat meat as part of our diet to survive, the amount of meat suggested by like the FDA is way smaller than like a giant hamburger or steak every single day.
Listen, you're confused. I'm not saying I'm choosing to eat a giant cheeseburger, but we need to eat meat, which comes from the murder of animals. The same way animals do that. The same way animals kill other animals. That's literally that's nature. That's nature. You get an abortion, it's not nature. That's
not. What do you mean? Animals have miscarriages, and sometimes animals lose children from too much physical activity and shit. Like, it happens. What do you mean?
Did you say miscarriage mean like an accident?
The idea that's saying that we shouldn't do an abortion because we have the option to doesn't make sense. Like, this argument, like it's nature, doesn't really make any sense.
It makes a lot of sense because no.
Why do you wear clothes? Like, that's not nature. We're talking on the computer right now. That's not nature. Why don't you murder your neighbor and take his stuff? Like, that could be nature. Like,
I brought up nature because you brought up animals. So that's why I said.
Well, no, I keep bringing up animals because you keep just using this blanket phrase, we should protect life, but that's not true. Now, you mentioned me more specifically human life.
I didn't say that.
Well, you did.
I was talking about babies because we was talking about abortion. You could try to twist that up, but I did. First off, as soon as you brought up animals, I already said off the rip.
I'm not trying to twist anything, okay? I'm sorry. I'm just trying to be very, very, very clear when I have these conversations. If you say, should we protect life, okay? Life encompasses, I mean, in your world, life even encompasses viruses. So life is a really, really broad term. So if you want to say, should we protect human life or human sentient life, like there's...
But of course, that's what I was talking about, right? Like, we're talking about abortion. So of course, when I say I'm pro-life, I'm talking about human life. Correct. Like, of course, that's what we talk about.
Well, yeah, but the problem is that like our debate right now really isn't about abortion. It's about what constitutes a human life worth protecting. So you can't just say like, well, I want to protect all life. Well, that's like the matter of what is life is like the very nature of our debate. Like, that's the subject of contention.
We already agreed that it's a life, though. We already agreed that abortion is taking.
Yeah, but when you say life, I agree that it's alive and that it's living tissue, the same way that cancer is living tissue. But we're not asking whether or not it's alive or it's a life. We're asking whether or not it's like a human life that ought to be protected. Like a brain dead person in a hospital, that's a life technically. But like, I wouldn't yield any moral consideration to it. I wouldn't save like a brain dead person in a burning down hospital. They're brain dead. We consider them dead. They have no more experience. They have no more conscious experience.
So I just want to be clear. Are you saying to you, because you asked me what I believe, so to you, it's comparable to bring up a brain dead person in a hospital and a life that's growing inside of a pregnant woman?
It seems to be the case, yeah.
To you, so you think both deserve the same amount of moral consideration?
Yes, if they're not having a conscious experience. Because if we start trying to take into account, well, what about the experience they might have in the future, you run into problems that you can't solve, and then everything falls apart.
Wow.
Here's an example. Let's say this, okay? I'm going to tell you that you have...
I'm actually sad now.
Sure. Okay, let's say that I tell you, you have to walk into a room, okay? With 99 other people, okay? 100 people are going to walk into this room. You have to go in. And when you do that, 2 of you are going to be killed immediately. 1 of you is going to have like a torturous, horrible death. 5 of you are going to hate your lives and want to kill yourselves. And then like maybe like 85, 90 of you get out like relatively okay. 10 get out really well. Do you think it's moral of me to force you to do that without you having any choice whatsoever?
You ran through that really fast, and I'm honestly,
sorry. So I send 100 people into a room. 10 of them are
100
fucked,
people into a room,
and 90 of them come out okay.
Fucked.
Yeah. 90 come out okay. Is it moral for me to force people to go in that room with no choice?
Like, it's more you to force people to go back into that room to save somebody else?
No. Just go through it at all. Like, I'm just saying, like, 100 people, you have to go through that room. 90 of you are going to come out okay. 10 of you are going to come out fucked. Maybe even dead or tortured. Is it moral of me to force them to go through that room?
I mean, you can't force nobody to go into a room.
No, I'm saying if you could force them, hypothetically, you force them to do it. Would that be immoral for you to force them to do that without taking their considerations into account?
I mean, honestly, I don't really care for hypotheticals, but I mean, that would be immoral to force somebody to go into a room. But
wait, you said it would be immoral?
For you to force somebody to go into a room.
And why would it be immoral to do it?
It'll be immoral to do it because who are you to force them to go into a room?
Exactly. So this is the problem that you run into. No. Okay, go ahead.
I knew why you said it, but let me go ahead and make it clear once again, because these analogies are terrible for multiple reasons.
It's a perfect analogy for childbirth. You're forcing somebody to come into existence, and you can't guarantee what its experience is going to be like in the world. It's immoral to have any child ever.
No.
If you take into account a child's preferences before it even has any. What?
Why do women get pregnant?
Like, are you asking for the biological reason, or why does somebody choose to have a family, or what do you mean? Why do women get pregnant?
How does a woman get pregnant?
Generally, it's when sperm hits the egg, and then you get a
yeah, because she popped that pussy open, somebody beat that thing up, right?
Okay,
that's how, right? So that's how. That's a choice. That's a choice. You know the potential outcome of this choice you're making by having sex.
This has nothing to do with whether or not it's moral to force a child to be born.
No. But this is why your analogy is not even relevant. Because you're missing a big step. Mm-hmm. You are making a decision. Mm-hmm. Your decision, knowing what it could lead to, led to you being pregnant. That's your responsibility. Aborting a baby is literally not taking care of your responsibilities, because you just trying to erase the responsibility, even though you chose to do this. This is all a choice.
But if the person believes that a conscious or an unconscious thing has no choices or has no desires, then that's fine. They are taking responsibility by having an abortion before it develops a conscious experience.
That's responsibility?
Yeah, is having an abortion before it develops a conscious experience that might reject the world it's being born into. Yeah.
No. Responsibility would be to, I don't know, maybe not have sex unless you're ready to be pregnant.
There is no responsibility. If you want to talk about the preferences of the child, getting pregnant is always irresponsible because the child never made a choice to exist. You can't force that on somebody. You can't force existence on someone. That's not fair to the child if you're trying to take into account its preferences before it even has a conscience.
It is fair because that's the only way it works. The only way life works
just
is you
because
get pregnant.
Something works that way doesn't make it fair or morally righteous or okay.
No. But it is fair because that's how it works. That's nature.
If I walk in your house and I rob you and kill you, I can't be like, well, that's fair because it's what I did. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't work.
That's not nature. That's something you made. That's something you made that's a decision you made out of free will that has nothing to do with nature.
Just because something is nature doesn't make it okay. People that die of diabetes.
What? Yes, it does make it okay because it's nature.
So
it's
if my kid is crying a lot and it's bothering the fuck out of me and I just choke it out and kill it, is that okay because it's nature? I got irritated. That's a natural response. You choking it's nature.
A baby is not nature. That's a choice you're making. An abortion
is a choice that you're making. What do you mean?
But that choice is a choice that's affecting another living thing. That's the difference. That choice you're making to abort a whole life.
So are choices good or bad based on if they affect living things or if they're natural? Like, what do you mean? Like, what I thought we were arguing.
What do you mean? Abortion isn't natural.
Yeah, but just because something's not natural doesn't make it bad, and just because something's natural doesn't make it good. I pointed out something natural, so maybe hitting somebody, maybe killing yourself is natural. Maybe you feel depressed, you want to jump off a building. Is that okay?
That's not nature.
Why
nature? Nature is you getting pregnant and you having a baby because that's period.
You realize in the animal kingdom, like animals kill their children like all the time, or they come in and they kill other people's children. Like
hamsters kill their kid, eat their kids.
Yeah, so like bunnies eat their kids too. So like that's nature. Is that okay? Like
that's a part of nature, but that's nature.
Okay, so then abortion is fine.
You're not a hamster. Oh my god, that's not nature for us. That's
okay. So you reject the comparison to animals now, but earlier when I asked you about eating meat, you were like, "Well, animals eat each other in nature, so we eat animals too." Earlier, then you were quick to compare yourself to like what animals do, but now we're drawing a distinction between how they act and how we act.
No, but I disagree with your premise about animals. Period. And I gladly said I eat animals. They're not. Yeah,
but you also said because they do things because they eat themselves too. Okay, but if you want to say they're not equal to humans,
I just added that on.
Okay, sure.
I added that on. I don't care about it. I honestly
So let's say that somebody has a baby and they don't really think they can take care of it, so they just leave it on the ground and walk away from it. That'd be pretty natural, no?
No. What you should do is first off, let's start with the beginning. Okay. Stop having sex if you're not ready for a baby. Period.
Or you can just use contraception, but okay.
Just stop having sex. The responsible thing to do is to not have sex until you're ready for a baby. And then if you're having sex, that means you're ready for a baby. And if you, after that, then we'll have way less problems. At that point, there's nothing else to even worry about because you don't have to worry about abortion because you're only having sex because you're ready for a baby. The problem is
in the history of the entirety of all of mankind, Has there ever been an example of us telling a group of people just don't have sex and then them doing that? Is that really like good advice from like a policy level that like, well, how are we going to fix this problem? We'll just tell everybody to stop.
Advice. Okay. It's great advice. But,
does it work for anybody ever?
But no. It doesn't work because humans are crazy.
Okay,
but,
why would you say don't have sex when having sex is natural and what's natural is good?
No. Don't have sex unless you're ready for a baby because having a baby is potentially...
Okay,
so
but earlier you said that like what was natural was what was good. People want to have sex when they're like fucking 12 or 13 or 14. As soon as
I never said sex. I never said sex was bad. But there's potential things that happen that come from sex. You could potentially catch an STD. You could potentially get pregnant. There are potential things that can happen after you have sex. So if you're not ready for the potential outcomes, then you should stay away from it until you're ready for them outcomes.
Well, what if one of the outcomes can just be abortion?
Like, but that's all I'm about to say. The next thing, and if you don't. If you do it and you're not ready for the outcomes, then you have to stick with that outcome.
Well, one of the outcomes can just be abortion. Also, STDs are natural too, so I don't know why you'd want to avoid those.
Okay.
The whole it's natural, so it's good. That's a really bad argument.
I see you keep trying to play a semantics game, which is.
Well, I'm not trying to play a semantics game, but when you say things like, "Well, it's good because it's natural," like there's so many horrible things that you have to buy into. A tornado is natural. Hurricanes. Yep, exactly. Those
viruses are natural.
Yeah, but
okay,
doesn't make it good or right. Cancer's natural. Like
cancer. That's debatable.
No, it's not. If you stand out in the sun all day, well, maybe not you, but if somebody like me stands out in the sun all day, I'll get fucking sunburnt like a motherfucker, and I'll develop skin cancer. Like that's not good. Like what the fuck?
Yeah, I'm talking about like, listen, I have theories, okay? So we're talking about cancer and stuff like that. It's just, I just find it very odd, the timing of everything. But let's not get into that. Let's get back into the abortion thing. So it's taking away life for a fact. It's taking away a human life for a fact. And people are trying to, like, you are justifying taking away a human life out of convenience because somebody wants to. And I just told you people need to take responsibilities for their action. And you said one of the responsibilities you can take for the action is to kill the responsibility. Now, once again, that can be your view. We can just disagree, but I think that's fucked up.
Okay, and I think it's fucked up to try to take into account the preferences of something that doesn't even have a conscious experience yet, because then you have to buy into a whole bunch of really weird arguments about why is it even right to have a kid in the first place when you're forcing them, you're subjecting them to a reality that they didn't consent to. That's like an impossible thing to conceive of.
It's right to have a kid because, you know, that's how you have kids. You fuck and you have kids.
You can't say that it's right to have kids because that's how you have kids. That's circular as fuck. Like, it's not an argument.
I mean, what I'm saying, you can't say it's wrong to have kids. I'm like,
well, I don't because I don't take into account unconscious experiences. No, though.
If anybody says it's wrong to have kids, that makes no sense because if you don't have kids. You don't have a population. I mean, everybody would be... Perfect example. If everybody was gay, we would go extinct.
Okay, but you can't tell me if that's right or wrong.
Extinction isn't bad.
Is it?
For humanity? Because humanity would be dead. So it's obviously bad for humanity. If we went extinct, correct?
Let's say that we were at a point where women weren't creating enough children to replace... all of our humans. Do you think that it would be immoral to force women to have children, to get raped and have kids? If we were going to go extinct? Okay, so then if women
But once again, you keep bringing up hypotheticals, right?
Because that's the only way I can test your idea, right? Is to see how it holds up in a hypothetical, right?
No, but that hypothetical is not even close to being realistic.
Well, that's why it's called a hypothetical, because it's not realistic.
But what I'm saying is, how can you test a hypothetical for something that's like that unrealistic?
Well, I'm testing your hypothetical to find out what your value statement is. So when you say like humans can't go extinct or whatever, I'm wondering, well, why do you think extinction is bad? Like, what do you compare that to? Would you force somebody to be raped in order to avoid extinction? Hold on. I'm curious what your values are.
Are you saying extinction isn't bad for humanity?
Well, it depends on what you mean by bad. Like, humanity will go extinct, but if anything, it would probably be really good for all the people still on the planet, right? There'd be more resources going to less people. There'd be less traffic. There'd be less pollution. There'd be more good... Yeah.
Extinct, meaning no humans.
Well, once all the humans are gone, there's no humans to have a negative opinion about it. What do you mean?
But I mean, none of us would be here, and of course, anybody would say that's a bad thing.
How is it bad if you're not? Again, like when you talk about things like this is good or this is bad, that's a function of existence. You can't.
I say this. I say it's bad for humanity because humanity wouldn't exist no more.
But
so
if humanity doesn't exist,
bad.
then how can you? There's no statements. They don't have a preference. Is this good or bad?
We do have a preference. We're live right now. Would you rather be live, Destiny?
Okay, right now, when you went to sleep last night, did you have any dreams, or did you just sleep and then wake up?
I did have a dream with something.
Okay, have you ever gone to sleep where you don't have any dreams?
You probably do. You just don't remember them.
Yeah, sure. So when you go to sleep and you have no dreams, the time between when you go to sleep and the time between when you wake up, would you say that time was good or bad? Did you feel good or bad during that time?
During the time I felt good because I was asleep.
You didn't feel anything. There was no experience or whatsoever. You didn't have a feeling until you woke up.
But your body needs sleep, right?
Yeah, but you yourself as a person, you didn't have a feeling of good or a feeling of bad until you woke up then. An experience had to happen for you to have a feeling. Yeah. So if all of humanity goes extinct, that's like everybody going into a dreamless permanent sleep. There is no more statements of good or bad or what feels good or bad. Like it just isn't. You can't have you can't even express those things.
Let me use your analogy, put it in the right context. Right now you're awake, right?
Yeah.
Do you think when you go to sleep tonight, after a long day of streaming and debating, do you think you'll get some good sleep?
Probably.
Matt, would you do you think it'd be terrible to have a bad sleep to where you wake up terrible? Do you think that'd be bad right now, even though you're awake?
Yep.
Okay. So right now, since we're all alive, having fun, I don't know what game you was.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like, I ain't gonna lie, like a boomer game. I'm not gonna lie, but it's cool. It's cool. I'm playing Fortnite right now. I'm having a great time. I'm debating. We're exchanging ideas. I know for a fact I don't want this to end, and I don't want
sure,
to become.
But you can only express that statement while you're conscious. In the example you gave me earlier, would you think you'd have a good sleep or a bad sleep? Guess what? I wouldn't know until I'd waken up. If I just go to sleep and I'm having a bad or a good sleep, I don't know that while I'm sleeping. I have to actually wake up to be able to understand if it was good or bad. So if I slept forever, I wouldn't know if it was a good or bad sleep. I wouldn't have any opinion on it whatsoever because I wouldn't have an experience to express that opinion or to even have that opinion.
But if humanity went extinct, we would see it becoming extinct, and we would know that it's happening. And we know being alive that we don't want humanity to be extinct. That's my point. We're alive now to know that we don't want to not be here. That's that's my point with extinction. So I then forgot what the point of that whole extinction conversation even.
We were talking about abortion. Abortion is a really, really, really deep argument, but yeah.
I'm still lost.
Sure. All right. Well, hey, do you have any final points you want to bring up?
No. We just got to make sure we do this in 2 to 3 weeks. And see where the country is at on the coronavirus thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because you said Trump handled it poorly, which to me statistically makes no sense.
Mm-hmm.
And you said it's about where we're gonna be, not about now. So you said now, of course, but the projections. So we have to see if the projections were incorrect, inaccurate. Then I will email you.
Yeah, we're like on the cusp of it right now, and then we'll see in 2 weeks, like where we're at. Like Trump himself was saying that, over 100, I think he said like if only 100,000 people die, then we did a good job, is what he's saying, is where we're at right now. So we'll see.
When did Trump say that?
On Sunday, I think.
Yeah, I'll have to look that up.
President Donald Trump acknowledged Sunday for the first time that deaths in the United States from coronavirus could reach 100,000 or more, adding that if the death toll stays at or below 100,000, we have altogether done a very good job.
Was that the actual quote?
The quoted part is, we altogether have done a very good job. I don't have to go into the original.
Isn't that odd how that came from that? Okay.
Well, I mean, we could look up the statement, like...
Well, I just wanted to point out, what's funny is I didn't even know that happened, but I knew for a fact that wasn't going to be the quote.
Let me try to find the exact video. Hold on.
The modeling put together by Dr. Birx and Dr. Fauci and our other top healthcare we have, and these people are amazing, the healthcare experts who in this country are the best in the world.
Are you one of those leftists that think there are more than two genders also?
More than two genders, probably not, but I think that like trans people are real. So the exact quote is, So if we can hold that down, as we're saying, to 100,000, it's a horrible number, maybe even less, but to 100,000, so we have between 100 and 200,000, we altogether have done a very good job. That's the quote from Trump.
And all that is in quotation marks in the article?
Or no, here's a link to the video itself. Like, if you click
okay,
the video,
I'm actually watching the video.
Yeah, sure.
I'm not a fan of news articles of any type.
Mitigation measures we are putting in place may significantly reduce the number of new infections and ultimately the number of fatalities. I want the American people to know that your selfless, inspiring, and valiant efforts are saving countless lives. You are making the difference. The modeling estimates that the peak in death rate
Armenian
is likely to hit in 2 weeks.
Okay, allow a few people in here. Oh, snap. My bad, y'all. I haven't been looking at you.
So, I'll say it again. The peak,
Holy
the highest point of death rate.
You looking up the video now?
Remember this.
Yeah.
Is likely to hit in 2 weeks. Nothing would be worse than declaring victory before the victory is won. That would be the greatest loss of all. Therefore, the next 2 weeks and during this period, it's very important that everyone strongly follow the guidelines, have to follow the guidelines that our great Vice President holds up a lot. He's holding that up a lot. He believes in it so strongly. The better you do, the faster this whole nightmare will end. Therefore, we will be extending our guidelines to April 30th to slow the spread.
He doesn't say the 100,000 quote in this video that's linked in this article. Hold on.
I'm Shimon Prokopez inside.
We watched this briefing earlier today, guys. Do you guys have a link to the quote when he says it?
I just want to reiterate, because a lot of people have been asking, well, what would have happened if we did nothing? Did nothing. We just wrote it out. And I've been asking that.
It seems like Dr. Fauci, people reporting that Dr. Fauci predicted 100,000 people would die, but he did not say that he was going over best and worst case scenarios.
2.2 million people from this. And so if we can hold that down, as we're saying, to 100,000, it's a horrible number.
Okay, here's a quote of him saying it directly. There you go.
Maybe even less, but to 100,000. So we have between 100 and 200,000. We all together have done a very good job.
Do you think Trump is racist, Destiny?
Maybe, but I don't really care about trying to guess whether or not somebody's racist or not. It's impossible to know, right?
I'm sure he isn't, but
how can you be sure that he isn't?
Well, actions. So I go off people's actions rather than
which actions has he taken to be sure that he isn't racist? How could one take actions to prove they aren't racist?
Well, just his history of always being around people of all types of color, inviting them, talking to him, being in interviews. He said he would pick Oprah as his vice president.
Do you think that having like black friends means that you can't hate black people?
Well, if you're a white supremacist, you can't hang around black people. So
I didn't ask if he was a white supremacist. I just asked if that he was racist. Do you think it's impossible for racist people to have black friends?
If you hate black people, well, I don't understand why would you.
Maybe because they're really wealthy. Maybe the hatred you have of their blackness is outweighed by the likeness that you have of like their status or their position or their wealth. Or...
Is that doing business with them, or is that you mean like being friends with them so you can or something?
Wait, hold on. Your mic is cutting out a lot. I'm sorry. What do you say?
I said, you mean like having a black friend because you want to get in a better position, like a useful black friend or something like that?
Yeah, sure.
Well, that wouldn't explain Donald Trump being in a rap interview with Tony Ayo. Tony Ayo can't help him with nothing in life.
I mean, if he's giving him favorable publicity, maybe. If he's doing a good interview with him.
Well, he's not. He actually only did it because a friend of his requested that he. did it out of love.
Well, you just said he did it because a friend told him to do it?
A black friend. That's why I brought that up. I was hoping you said that. 50 Cent.
Okay. Does Trump have any non-famous black friends? Or they're all famous wealthy people?
I'm sure he has a lot of famous black friends. I've read articles, but I'm talking about actions that I've seen him do. So, you know, he said Tiger Woods was a friend, or Tiger Woods famous. I mean, if the person not famous, obviously we don't know.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But famous people hang around famous people, you know?
Do you think Obama was racist?
I guess white people? Nah, I don't think his wife is, though.
Does she not have any white friends?
Probably, but like you said, useful.
So why can't I say the same about Trump? If her having white friends isn't enough to prove that she's not racist, then why is Trump having black friends enough to prove that he's not racist?
Well, because that's not why I think she's racist or not racist. I think she's racist because of literal actions that she said about white people that was actually racist.
Do you think that Trump might be xenophobic against Muslims?
Oh, I haven't heard him say anything xenophobic about Muslims.
So what about on his website when he said he wanted to ban all Muslims from coming to the United States?
Well, he probably did that because he generalized all Muslims.
So when you generalize a huge group of people based on the actions of a few, what do you call that?
That's not racism. It's what I said, generalizing.
So if I think that black people like steal stuff more and I'm walking next to you and then I cross the street because I'm scared of you because I think you're going to rob me, would you consider me racist, or is that just me generalizing the actions of a few?
I consider you a generalizing bitch.
What happens? But what do you call it when you generalize somebody based on like a physical characteristic, like their race?
Well, racism is thinking your race is better than that race. That's what the definition of racism is.
Well, no, that's the definition of supremacy. Racism doesn't mean you have to think that your race is better. Usually it does, but
that's literally that's actually it though.
No, that's not what racist doesn't mean, that you think that you're necessarily superior. Like it could be, usually goes hand in hand. But like, for instance, like a white supremacist might say, well, white people aren't naturally like superior to Asians, but we should all have our own places to live, right? So they should all go away. Or same thing with black people or whatever.
Yeah, well, white people do white supremacists, obviously in the name, they think they're the supreme race.
Yeah, white supremacists do, but every racist isn't like a supremacist, right?
The definition of racism is thinking that you are the superior, like that's what that is, though. Just so you know, we're clear by definition.
Okay. Okay, any final things? I have to beat this. There's a game I'm trying to beat tonight. I'm trying to beat the new.
Oh, no. Go ahead. I was waiting for you to send me the Trump thing.
To reconvene.
Oh, you already sent it.
Oh, yeah, the Twitter link, yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool. Then we'll leave back up in a few weeks and we'll see how this coronavirus turn out.
Sure. Okay. All right. Well, hey, listen, buddy, I love you. Do you want to give a shout out where people can find you or whatever?
Bryson on Twitch if you care about Fortnite. But I'm down any of you are Trump fans. But if you are, of course, I make pro-Trump, pro-God music if you're a person of faith. That's pretty much it. Just type in Bryson Gray anywhere.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, hey, thanks for the chat, man. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
All right. Have a good one. Bye. And you would tell me that, well, it's okay to go ahead and be buddy-buddy with Kimmy in North Korea because that's good foreign policy. Like, how do you ever decide?